All right, we are taking a look at every team's 2024 season as a whole before we tick over into 2025. So today it is the Gold Coast Suns, everybody's favorite team. Before we get started though, remember to like, comment and subscribe. Let us know how you view Dimmer's men's season in 2024. Let's crack in. This season review is brought to you by Skills Beast, the best teaching apparatus to learn how to kick effectively with the correct technique every time. No matter what your age or skill level, Skills Beast will transform your kick. Head to skillsbeast.com to instantly kick better. And to help me break this down, it is Darren Parkin, AFL commentator and analyst. Darren, two more wins in 2024, should I say, but they could not win on the road.
No, they just couldn't. They didn't win an away game until round 22, which is extraordinary. That was after the Siren McAndrew game against the Bombers at Marvel, and they beat Richmond in the last game of the season. Obviously, the Tigers were very much at the end of the road by that stage, but yeah, obviously it was a big year for them with the change of coach from Stewie Dew into the Damien Hardwick era. They were probably a better version of the same side, if that makes sense. The year before they were 7-4 at home and 2-10 away, and this year 9-3 at home and 2-9 away. And one of the three home losses was Gather Round, which was classified as their home game. So they were 9-2 in the games played either at Carrara or in Darwin, where they've been undefeated for quite some time. So, yeah, a very difficult side to beat at home. And if you break it down, they beat Port Adelaide, Hawthorn, Geelong and Collingwood in home games, but lost away games to West Coast and North Melbourne. So that kind of sums up where they were. Those two road wins late in the year hopefully give them confidence. It was their last two away games of the season, particularly the Essendon one where the Bombers were desperate. They were playing for their season and the Suns were able to, weather the storm and hold them out. They got their percentage up around 100, so the balance between attack and defence was better, and 11 wins is their equal best season in terms of total victories. So they're getting a little bit closer to a maiden finals appearance, but yeah, they've got to find a way to bring their best football on the plane when they get on it. Yeah,
absolutely. Some very interesting numbers there. So let's move now to the 2024 pass mark. Okay, so heading into 2024, obviously it's going to be a little bit different. You're coming in with a new coach, a new game plan. I tipped them to make the top 8 at the start of the year, I'm pretty sure. How did you have it?
Yeah, pretty close. If you said at the start of the year they'd win 9 of 11 home games, you'd assume they'd make the 8 because you've only got to pick up 3, maybe 4 on the road to get there. It was always going to be a bit of a transition under a new coach. Obviously, Hardwick's record has been outstanding at the Tigers, but getting a look at a new group, sometimes it can take a bit of time. But they won their first 2 games, and there they set a bit of a platform. So it feels like it was in a pretty even season, and given what their best football looks like, they just missed a chance to play finals. So it wasn't inconceivable that they could have made it. So therefore, they were probably a little bit frustrated with their season overall.
Yep, absolutely. So let's delve a bit deeper with some lowlights. Okay, so the Gold Coast Suns were ranked last in the competition for kick inside 50 retention percentage. It's pretty damning.
Yeah, so basically what that means is the last kick inside 50, they're turning that one over. There's obviously a few sides that are sort of suffering in that sort of space. But yeah, their ball use overall would be the biggest issue, and whether that comes down to sort of how they're moving it. I know if you take the way Richmond played when Damien Hardwick was coach, it was very frantic, where if you watched them, it would be belt the ball forward, soccer it off the ground, swarm onto it, that sort of wave of pressure. And what that can mean is that it can look a bit at times chaotic and scrappy. So whether the Gold Coast Suns are adjusting to that, but that last kick inside 50 has been pretty average. And across the board, if you look at their midfield, only one player ranked top 50 in the competition for kicking efficiency on their list. So it just goes to show they've just got to straighten up a little bit. They're getting a lot of the ball and getting a lot of looks. They're just giving it back too often. And the bottom 3 for scores per inside 50, which relates to the same thing, and forward 50 ground ball differential. And the reason for that is it's not hitting the ground because they're kicking it back to the opposition. So that all sort of ties in together. And their ultimate low light is the thing we spoke about at the start, their record on the road. They've just got to get better.
Yep, absolutely. So obviously the Gold Coast, as you mentioned, they had their issues with ball use, but they did rank second in the competition for forward half intercepts, which is pretty good.
Yeah, so they're pressure in the forward half. So yeah, top 7 for inside 50 differential. So they get a lot of it down there. Time in forward half differential and points from forward half intercepts. So again, it shows that they can pressure, they can keep it in there. And if they stop giving it back, it's spending enough time down there that they'll be all right. Their midfield has a really good nucleus to be, one of the better in the competition. Flanders exploded as a player, had nearly 700 possessions. He was pretty unlucky not to be in the All-Australian squad of 44. They had Anderson and Collins in that squad, but he just missed out. Obviously, Matt Rowell had one of his best seasons. Noah Anderson's a star, and Tuke Miller missed some games, but can certainly play. They had 2,500 possessions between them, those 4 players. They also kicked 36 goals, which is okay. It can improve, but that's a bit. And look at Matt Rowell on his own, 184 tackles, which was 100 more than anyone else at the club. He had 163 clearances, which was outstanding. And then Ben King, 55 goals, had a very strong year. But I guess the final point on Flanders, I think he went past... I think he had 44 or 45 touches in a game, which is the second most possessions for a Suns player in a game behind Ablett, who had about 8,000 against Collingwood at the MCG about 10 years ago. So, he's very much improving.
Yep, absolutely. I'm also just going to sneak in a highlight here that I believe is a highlight, and it is the rebrand. It is the new logo.
You like it?
I love it. I don't care what anybody else says. Like, half the competition's logos are birds, okay? So, I like something that's a little bit different. The red on red, you can't see it, but it looks great, all right?
It looks better on a jumper, I must admit. I mean,
yeah.
In isolation, not great. On a jumper, it's a bit better, which is obviously what you want, but maybe it'll grow on us.
It's already there. Everyone's coming around to it. It's a highlight. This next segment is brought to you by Skills Beast, who have been helping AFL players of all skills transform their kick. So who transformed their game in 2024? We mentioned him before. It is Sam Flanders.
Yeah, I mentioned him a couple of times. Second most possessions ever in a season for a Gold Coast Suns player. Led the club this year in most of those stat categories. And so of the... apart from, and I'll go to my grave with this one, apart from Rowan Marshall, who's the unluckiest player ever in the history of the All-Australian squad of 44, I'd say Sam Flanders is a pretty close second.
Yeah, absolutely. And if there's one thing we know at zerohanger.com, it is headlines. And for the Gold Coast, for the most part, they were pretty quiet. They are quite a quiet club up there, but they did have Dusty in their sights.
Yeah, the Dusty watch. And apparently that got... reasonably close, and that he didn't absolutely put a line through it until almost at the 11th hour of that trade period. But that was the whisper all year, that people putting 2 and 2 together with Damien Hardwick coaching and with Dan Rioli obviously heading up there, that maybe Dusty would have followed suit, but didn't end up happening. So it all amounted to naught, and that's officially done now. So but that was probably the headline that just kept popping up. The will Dusty end up at Carrara, but he did not.
Yeah, I'll admit he would have looked good in some red on red.
He would have.
All right, so some of the ins and outs. We'll start with the outs. So Jack Lukosius and Rory Atkins both going to Port. It was a pretty big one.
Yeah, yet another Rory to play footy in South Australia. There's quite a few of them over there. But yeah, Jack Lukosius was just going to be Crows or Port, and ended up being Port Adelaide. But he had a really good patch a couple of years ago where I think he kicked 5 in a game 4 times in about 8 or 9 weeks. And last year he had his moments as well. Disappointing season overall, but they'll miss him based on what his best looks like. So, a couple of handy gains for Port, that's for sure. Brandon Ellis, very good servant, premiership player at the Tigers, who went up there and did a good job. He retired. Levi Casbolt, particularly a couple of years ago when it was he and sort of carrying that forward line a little bit when Ben King was injured. And then just some delistings. Darcy McPherson had his moments in his career, just couldn't quite nail it down. Sam Day, one of the originals. And then the likes of Sandy Brock and Jack Marnie and a few of those types of players that just weren't quite getting it done.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the players that did do a Dusty is Daniel Rioli.
Yeah, and obviously gave up a first-round pick for him. Ended up getting an academy prospect in the first round anyway in Leo Lombard, who they matched St Kilda's bid at pick 9 from their own academy. But yeah, Daniel Rioli, excellent year at the Tigers, and reunites with Dimmer, and that's a really good inclusion for them. They pick up John Noble from the Pies, Elliot Himmelberg from the Crows as well, as a couple of those mature players, and then they get... Cooper Bell and some rookies like Max Noble and those sorts of players. But it was all really about Rioli and Lombard, I think, were the highlights for their off-season.
Yeah, absolutely. They're great ins. Okay, so coming into 2025, Dimmer's second season in charge, they should be making finals. I'm probably going to tip them for finals again.
Yeah, if you go through the interstate sides, the Eagles made the finals in their second year. The Brisbane Bears, it was their 9th season. The Crows in their 3rd. Port in their 3rd. Fremantle in their 9th. Giants, I think, made the finals in their 4th year or 5th year. Gold Coast are entering season 15. So it's obviously about time that they sort of nail it down. They've been around the mark for the last few years, sort of winning between 9 and 11 games. It feels like the next step for them. And those numbers, the profile says that they don't have to do a lot to change things up. So I think the expectation would be that they make the 8.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple more wins on the road and they should be there. Well, that wraps it up for the 2024 season review for the Gold Coast Suns. Thank you, Darren. Should be a pretty interesting watch next year.
Yeah, they will be a fun side to watch. If they can get it happening on the road, they'll play finals.
Yep, absolutely. So thank you for watching. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know what you think the Suns are capable of in 2025. Can they make finals for the first time in 15 seasons? That is still a crazy stat to think about. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe, and catch all the latest AFL news at zerohanger.com. This season review was brought to you by SkillsBeast. Instantly kick better. Head to skillsbeast.com for more info.